All right, so we had a couple weeks off of not reading stories at tea time. We're not doing tea time. So tonight we're going to start back on chapter number 5 of the Mutiny on board H.M.S. Bounty. We're having peppermint tea, and for a treat we are having treats from Rita's Italian Ice. We've got the Nutter Butter and Vanilla Custard Sandwich Cookies and Sugarfree Dragonfruit Italian Ice. So whenever Mommy's ready, we'll get started.
Alright, do the nature of melting. We'll go ahead and do this first. Kaylee, may I have the cookie? Sean, may I have your cookie?
I need to ask.
Sean, you will carefully pass me the teapot.
This pot is gaining some weight.
It's very warm. Kaylee, please pass this to me. Sean, can I have your tea?
Yes, please.
Kaylee, may I have your tea?
Yes, please.
Daddy, may I have your tea?
Yes, please. Sean, we don't have any spoons for those of us that are having ice. Can you go get some spoons, please,
Okay.
for eating?
Kaylee, will begin this evening service.
I think you should start making those intermission things. Like whenever we need to go get something, we can just press intermission.
Yes.
This is also our first tea time with this new table and chairs that are about 100 years old. What's the name of the chairs again?
Duncan Fife Reproductions.
Duncan Fife Reproductions. With roots going all the way back to the 1815 era. Although these were not made that far back.
These were minted during the 1930s
It's like
by an American company.
it's like 1860s style.
It mimics the same lyre and carving as the 18th century design,
You guys
but
pass this
it
to me.
retains, and it was made in the 1930s as a reproduction, sort of a revival set.
Very good.
You get my extra scoop?
Two scoops is fine.
Being apple lettuce.
Alright, let's begin the story.
Mind your manners, be courteous and respectful of the reader, please.
Tonight it's kind of late, so we're only going to read one chapter. Chapter number 5. Signs of Trouble. 3 men desert. And it doesn't mean they get dessert after supper. December the 1st. The weather for some time has been very unsettled. This afternoon the wind blew fresh from the northwest. By night, such a heavy, broken sea came into the bay, we had to batten down all the hatchways. Though the rain came down in torrents, everybody was on deck all night. Each man was needed as the ship rolled violently. In the morning the wind increased. It was impossible to put to sea for safety. We hauled down yards and topmasts and trusted to our anchors. The river swelled so much with the rain that the point of land on which the tents stood became an island. To save the breadfruit plants, the men cut a path for the river through part of the beach away from the tents. The sea was breaking very high on the beach, so I was astonished to see Tina and Idea put off in a canoe and make their way through the violent surf to the ship. They each had a paddle, which they managed with great activity and skill. On board, these kind people embraced me and explained they were worried for the ship's safety. Towards noon, however, the sea calmed. At sunset, Idea went back to shore, but Tina remained with me the whole night. Sunday the 7th, I received a visit from the chief Polino and his wife. Like Tina and Idea, they were concerned for our safety. There's a picture of them rowing out to the ship during the violent storm.
Excuse me, I didn't get to see the word idea.
Polina said that if any accident happened to the ships, I would be welcome to live with him, and that he and his people would cut down trees and build me another ship. From this sample of the weather and the information of the natives, I am convinced that it will not be safe to continue in this bay much longer. We must set sail as soon as possible. Monday the 8th. Our surgeon died this afternoon. He had been ill for a long time. This unfortunate man drank a great deal. Throughout the voyage, he scarcely stirred from his cabin. When he did, it was because he was dangerously drunk. He hated exercise, so he never would take half a dozen turns upon deck at a time during the whole voyage. I ordered all the other men to exercise. I thought the surgeon should know the needs of his body better. We buried him on shore, with many of the natives attending the ceremony.
So the surgeon died of drunkenness.
I know, don't take too much whiskey.
Wednesday the 17th. After a long day of walking the island, Nelson and I ate our dinner and then headed back towards the ship. I was much delighted during this walk with the number of children I saw everywhere. They are very handsome and sprightly and full of tricks. They have many games that are common with children in England. Flying kites, cat's cradle, swinging, dancing, jumping rope, walking upon stilts, and wrestling. Almost every day we received presents of fish, dolphin, tuna, bonito, and a few small rockfish. The natives' fishing is done mostly at night. They light blazing torches on the reefs or in their canoes to attract the fish. Sometimes in fine weather there are so many canoes the whole sea appears lighted. In fishing from their canoes they use hook and line. On the reefs they strike the fish with a spear or scoop them out with small nets. Whenever there is a show of fish, a fleet of canoes immediately goes to sea.
Not a bad idea. What is cat's cradle?
It's like a game involving strings, and you play with them with your hands.
Mm-hmm. I know what that
I've never played it before. It looks very
complicated.
complicated, but
I never played cat's cradle. Really?
their hooks are bright and used without bait. Their rods are made of bamboo. Monday, the 5th of January, 1789. At the relief of the watch at 4 o'clock this morning, I discovered that 3 men were absent. They had taken arms and ammunition. No one on board knew what their plan was or which way they had gone. I went on shore to the chiefs and soon was told that the deserters' boat had been found and that they had taken a sailing canoe to another island 5 miles away. I sent Mr. Fryer, the master, and one of the chiefs after the Bounty's cutter. But before they got halfway to shore, they met 5 natives who were bringing the boat back to the ship. This pleased me, and I rewarded them. I was determined not to leave Otaheite without those men.
So that island they're on is Otaheite.
Mm-hmm.
How did the milk to cool down?
I could not understand their desire to remain on the island and forsake their families and the lives they led in England. But more, I would not allow them to desert His Majesty's service. Tina and the other chiefs said they would bring the men back to me. Thursday, the 22nd. I received a message that the deserters were in a house 5 miles away. A little before sunset, I got into the cutter and left the ship. The night was very dark and windy, as I landed at some distance from the place where they were. The deserters had evidently heard I was coming after them, but when I came near the house, they gave themselves up. I discovered that their ammunition had been spoiled by the sea during their canoe trip, so they had to give up without a fight. The natives who had kept a close watch on them left us. The deserters were severely punished when we reached the ship.
Why did they run away?
Mutiny?
I don't know.
Well, please call the mutiny more to H.M.S. founding, so obviously why...
Mutiny is when they take over the ship.
Yeah.
Desertion is when they leave the ship.
Mhm.
January 23rd. This afternoon, I punished one of the seamen with 19 lashes for striking an Indian.
Wow.
His action was so serious and so totally against my orders that I could not let it go unpunished. This morning, I ordered all of the chests to be taken on shore and the inside of the ship to be washed with boiling water to kill the cockroaches.
Oh.
It was essential that we keep the ship free of all insects because of the plants.
Poor cockroaches, huh?
Tina surprised me after dinner by seriously suggesting that he and his wife, Idea, should go to England with me. He wanted very much to see King George, who he was sure would be glad to see him. And, he said, he would only take 2 servants. I had to promise him that I would ask the king's permission to take him to England if I came again. Friday, the 6th of February. Something happened today that worried me greatly. Not only because the ship was put in danger, but because it lessened the confidence and good understanding between us and the natives. The wind had blown strong the night before. At daylight, we discovered that the cable that anchored the ship had been cut near the water's edge. Only one strand of the cable remained. After repairs were made, I gave orders that one of the midshipmen should keep watch more directly on the cable. I believe a native from another island cut it. Tina promised to find the guilty person.
Must be another one of his men.
Mm.
Well, what could be one of the deserters?
It later occurred to me that this attempt to cut the ship adrift might have been the act of some of our own men. Their wish to remain at Otaheite would have come true, without danger of whipping for desertion, if the ship had been driven ashore. At the time, though, I had no idea that their attachment to this island was so strong, that my men would choose to remain here and abandon every hope of returning to their native country. From the 5th to the 14th of March, the wind blew constantly, with a great deal of rain. This slowed our departure plans. The 16th of March. For some days, Tina has been busy making 2 fine cloaks as a present for King George. They are made of brightly colored bird feathers. Finished today, they were hung in his house, and Tina said a prayer that the King of England might forever remain his friend and not forget him. The natives show that they are sad we will be leaving them shortly. They are unusually kind and attentive. This afternoon we began to remove the plants to the ship. They were in excellent condition. The roots had appeared through the bottom of the pots and would have shot into the ground if we hadn't taken care to prevent it.
Those are some nice
Yeah,
ones.
that's some ice.
Tuesday the 31st. Today, all the plants are on board. There are 774 pots, 39 tubs, and 24 boxes. In all, 1,015 breadfruit plants. In addition, we collected a number of other fruit and vegetable plants from the island. I gave some last presents to my friends. Each man's native Tio, or friend, brought him presents also. I took the hogs given by the natives to individual men and added them to the ship's stores. Friday, the 3rd of April. I mean to sail out early tomorrow morning. The ship has been crowded the whole day with natives, and we are loaded with food and supplies. This evening there is no dancing and mirth on the beach as we have had all along. Now everything is silent. Saturday the 4th. At 6:30, shortly after daylight, we weighed anchor. There was no wind. We towed the ship out of the harbor with our boats. Soon after, the sea breeze came, and we stood off toward the sea. During the entire time that we were anchored at Otaheite, the picture of Captain Cook had been kept on the ship. When I returned the picture to Tina, I wrote on the back the time of the Bounty's arrival and departure and an account of the number of plants on board. We bid farewell to Otaheite, where for 23 weeks we had been treated with great affection, which increased the longer we stayed. The natives were friendly and endearing. All the men were welcomed into the natives' homes and had the pleasure of sharing their simple, easy, comfortable ways. I'm sure some of the men found this life enjoyable, and it might have crossed their minds to stay. I know these are the reasons for the event which later ruined the expedition, an expedition that I had every good hope for. Next time we read will be on chapter 6, Mutiny on the ship.
That one will be interesting. I know it's not great, but
Chapter 5 is a long chapter.
Yes.
Ellie, what was your favorite part of that chapter? Part where they're leaving?
I don't really think they'll leave yet. They still have to get through that Mutiny battle.
What's your favorite part?
One?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it might be the part where the deserters just like got the ship's one of the ship's boats and rode 5 miles away and have to go chase after them.
Hmm.
What was your favorite part, Mom?
I'm intrigued by the idea of the bird feathers cloaks and how they must have worked really hard with a lot of feathers to make that happen.
You know,
Cloaks are no small garments. It must have taken a great deal of bird feathers to make it colorful and big enough for an adult to wear.
like we get a Labrador or a pedigree.
A what?
A pedigree?
A pedigree? What is that?
I think it's some kind of dog.
I've never heard of that.
I think so.
Tea is over.